that if you come into my fat acceptance space, or any fat acceptance space, or fat positivity space, body positivity space, and you come in here, especially if you're a thin person, and you come in here and you tell me that I'm wrong, or that you're not willing to listen, or to be educated, or that you come in here trying to talk over us, then I'm gonna block you. I'm gonna delete your inconsiderate comments, I'm gonna delete your wrong comments, and then I'm gonna block you. Because you are not allowed to come into a fat positive space with your thin little tears and demand space in a space that's not for you. The BOPA movement is about changing how society views marginalized bodies and dismantling the discrimination and oppression that marginalized bodies face. And that, my friend, has absolutely nothing to do with how you view your body. It has to do with how others view it. And it has to do with how others mistreat you because of it. And that is why thin people are not meant for the body positive movement.
As a depressed person who doesn't want to fucking make food, I had more energy to get up, to go outside, to go for a fucking walk, to get food because I couldn't make any. And then the Tim Hortons that I go to literally is not selling food. You bet I said f you to the guy and left. I fucking hate this pandemic. I fucking hate people. Holy shit.
Hi everyone, it's me again. And my bed isn't made because Gus went around in the mud and then jumped on the bed before I could wash his paws. That's the that's the background that we're working with today. Today we're going to talk about the TikTok creator Marissa Matthews, who is a fat acceptance content creator who is very popular while also being very notorious within the fat acceptance, fitness commentary realm, health at every size, criticism and support realm, and a lot of different areas of the internet. We'll provide grounding context for this as well through the parts of the video, and I will explain myself further, so please do not freak out, comment, or expect a sort of I'm bashing fat people video, because that's not what this is. But first, links to socials, ways to support the channel, including today's sponsor link, Amazon, Patreon, YouTube memberships, all that kind of stuff, along with affiliate links to What's on My Face, Every Jewels, and Gerard Cosmetics, all down below. And there are good sales at everything, essentially, that is linked if you so care to visit it. Thank you to my current members and patrons. Names on the screen. Parts of the video, 3 parts. Part 1, who is Marissa Matthews? Part 2, attitude and deflection. And part 3, redirection of fatphobia to other prejudice. For those of you who are new to this series, the Rhetoric of series is a collection of videos that do not represent comprehensive deep dives on the whole person's history, rather takes a look at their content, patterns of discourse, and the way that they approach their audience and issues that they wish to address in their content. If you are looking for more deep dive videos, I do link my sources down below, and half the time, half of them are deep dive videos that you are looking for, if that's what you want. So welcome to the newest installment of the Rhetoric of series, the series where we quite literally read someone to filth. So, yeah, I think we'll have a good time. But before we get into that, let's do a callback to past me and look at today's video sponsor. To get into all of that, I want to thank the sponsor for this video, Private Internet Access VPN. Whether you're in a coffee shop, an airport, or any other public Wi-Fi, your device is constantly transmitting information out in the open that can, at times, if connected to the same internet, can be intercepted by hackers before it gets to its destination. A VPN, or virtual private network, allows your IP address to be safeguarded. It does so through a encrypted tunnel kind of base connection. So you can see on the graphic on the screen that essentially what's happening is it's doing a direct pathway without your information kind of just being out in the open, and allows for nobody to fiddle with it. When connected to a network, hackers that are connected to the same network as you have the ability to steal your data. Browsing without Private Internet Access VPN is like having your screenshots from the group chat going to the person that you're talking about. You know, it's that hidden information that you didn't want out there, hitting the wrong person. We all know. We've all done it. We want to talk about somebody, and we send the screening to that person. Imagine your private information ending up in the same sort of pickle. So private internet access helps keep your data safe by creating that encrypted tunnel, as I had mentioned before, through their world-class server infrastructure, which has your information shielded in this sort of bulletproof encrypted network. To make things even better, private internet access is really well known for their transparency and are known to never ever store their user data. They have a policy called the no logs policy that's actually been proven multiple times in court. Private internet access is also available on all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Android, the whole nine. I actually actually have it for my iPad Pro, I have it for my iPhone, and I have it for my Windows computer. So it gets even better. You can use private internet access to get to shows that do not have access in certain countries. I know that a lot of people like to watch RuPaul's Drag Race on Canadian Netflix, for example. For me personally, I'm planning to travel soon. In the next year, and I'm obsessed with this streaming service in Canada called Crave. Actually cannot access Crave outside of Canada because it's owned by one of the big three telecompanies. I checked. Once I put my VPN to the US, it doesn't work. But if I'm in the US, I put my VPN to Canada, I can continue watching Crave. So that's my kind of what I'm going to be using it for when I travel. And then for my personal use, frankly, I just use it to protect my devices, to protect from people taking my data. I do a lot of public surfing. I go to school as well, and I'll use the internet cafes and stuff that are at the different buildings. So I like to use it for a lot of different things. And one big thing, I have been able to look at geo-locked things like court hearings and different legal documents that are only accessible in the States. I've been able to actually get past the geo-locking with the private internet access VPN. I put mine to just like New York or Vermont or something, and then I'm actually able to get to what I need. By using my link in the description as well as the pinned comment, you can get 83% off private internet access VPN, which comes out to just $2.03 USD per month and 4 months completely free. So thank you to Pia for sponsoring the video, and let's get right into the news. I gotta stop doing that. Part 1, who is Marissa Matthews? Marissa Matthews is a fat activist who has dedicated her platform to combating fatphobia and promotes sort of a health at every size aspect to her content and messaging. I'm not 100% sure if she's in like the Haze movement per se, a la Tess Holiday. It's indicative to like the way that the content is positioned and the things that she says in it. So Marissa Matthews is extremely famous in the corner of the internet that makes sort of fat acceptance cringe videos. There's a whole sector of like YouTube related to this, and if any of you follow like Girl World, like Amberlynn Reed, Chantel Foodie Beauty are the same person, Hungry Fat Chick, stuff like that, Nikocado Avocado, you'll probably get recommended these, because that's where I find like it starts to come down that sort of pipeline. These videos are essentially people like reacting to TikToks of like fat people talking about stuff, and then sometimes it's constructive and related to other things, sometimes it's just like LMAO, like stupid stuff that's like kind of counterintuitive to everything that matters. Quality of the commentary varies extremely through different creators in this particular sector of the internet. Similarly to Girl World as well, I'd say. There are many points that Marissa Matthews, however, typically does make in her videos related to social justice, intersectionality, socioeconomic class, and race, all in relation to fatphobia, where there are some things that can be taken at face value effectively, but the issue comes down to the way that she makes the content. The reason primarily that Marissa is talked about as much as she is, it's because of her horrible attitude and approach to content and the sort of nature of doing a lot of things that blow up in her face, maybe could be hypocritical too in the viewing of how people see them. It puts her in a position where people don't really even want to attempt to listen to what she's saying. And then despite the fact that she has this issue, will not adapt the content in any capacity. With that, we'll move on to more detail on that in part 2. Part 2, attitude and deflection. Marissa, as I mentioned, has a reputation for her attitude and approach to criticism. So not only is there an unpleasant forcefulness in her tone, and she literally has something that she calls the "I'm talking to someone who I think is stupid" voice.
Why are you eating the lettuce like that? Why are you sauteing the lettuce? Isn't it soggy? Is that still crunchy? Why are you eating it like that? So which one is it?
Why are you talking like that?
That's my "I think you're stupid" voice, Mom. You know that.
It's just an overall, like, you get that sort of angry feeling in your tummy. Not the kind, and she'll try to boil it down to, "You don't like what I'm saying." No, girl. No. You'll know what I mean. I'll put in a couple examples.
I am actively trying to not be a people pleaser. A recovering people pleaserist, if you wish. And guess what that entails? That entails me not listening to what people try to tell me on here. You shouldn't wear red. Okay, I'm still gonna wear red then. You shouldn't post a spinning video. Okay, then I'm still gonna post a spinning video. And I'm gonna be a petty at the same time doing it. Because no one has the fucking right to tell me what to do.
An issue that comes with this is also that because of how crass she is and how unpleasant she is to essentially deal with, it becomes extremely difficult to take her seriously. Essentially, a lot of what Marissa talks about involves an extreme anger against anybody who inconveniences her in any way, criticizes her in any way, whether that be constructive or non-constructive, disagree with her in any capacity on any of the points, disagree with the way that she makes the points, or overall just does not enjoy her presence on the internet.
Just because a fat person exists does not mean that they want your unwanted and unsolicited health advice. Let me say it again. Fat people's existence, me existing, doesn't mean that we automatically want your unwanted and unsolicited health advice.
Leave fat people alone, damn it!
For some of you guys do not make any sense. For context, please watch the video that this is attached to. So you're telling me that because I don't want to listen to someone who, one, doesn't follow me, doesn't really watch my content, you want me to listen to somebody telling me how to make my videos and what to do in them? You're trying to tell me that I need to listen to someone who's trying to control what I do on my app and how I make content? If I want to make a spinning video, I'm going to do that, because guess what? That's not my responsibility. If you're prone to motion sickness, then guess what? Don't watch videos that make you dizzy. Like, don't watch spinning videos of people spinning. Just don't do that then. That has nothing to do with me. That's your own personal responsibility, dude. But you want to say that because I'm not listening to some jerk off who wants to tell me how to make my content, then that means I'm not accommodating? Seriously? When I talk about creating an accommodating world, it has to do with marginalized people. Your argument is not the same.
Vitriol towards those who negatively comment against her is something that is very common despite the reality of working online, and she says that that reality isn't something that she should have to accept. And while on one hand, I kind of understand that, on the other hand, you can kick and scream about the reality that's present to you and how you do deem it unfair. But if you do so in a way that is so poorly constructed that it seems almost hyperbolic and like a performance, then it's not going to effectively change anything. She blames everybody else in the world except her on how her messaging isn't effective. And this is something that comes up in, I believe it's one of the chapters of this book, A Rulebook for Arguments. I actually didn't put this part into the script, but I actually remember seeing something that was kind of interesting for this. There is a part in this book, section 38, called Seek Feedback and Use It. This is quite literally a book on how to make arguments to people in a way that is effective. So if we read this, maybe you know exactly what you mean. Everything seems clear to you. However, it might be far from clear to anyone unrelated to someone reading your essay or watching your TikTok videos. I've seen students hand in an essay they think is sharp and clear, only to find when they get it back that they themselves can barely understand what they were thinking when they wrote it. Their grades won't be very encouraging either. Writers at all levels need feedback. It is through others' eyes you can see best where you are unclear or hasty or just plain implausible. Feedback improves your logic too. Objections may come up in the ways that you haven't expected. Premises you thought were secure may turn out to need defending, while other premises may turn out to be more secure than they seemed. You may even pick up a few new facts or examples. Feedback is a reality check all the way around. Welcome it. Some teachers build student feedback on paper drafts right into the timeline of their classes. If your teacher does not, arrange it yourself. Find willing fellow students to exchange drafts, go to your campus writing centers, encourage your readers to be critical, and commit yourself to being a critical reader for them in turn. If need be, you might even assign your readers a quota of specific criticisms and suggestions to make so they don't feel like they're hurting your feelings by suggesting some. And the rest of it's just structural feedback for essays. By the way, this is super random, really quick side tangent. If you are a student in university right now, and your undergraduate especially, and you are in a writerly discipline or a non-writerly discipline, I learned way more about writing from the writing center than any professor ever gave me. I got transferred into English. I was in science originally. And I remember when I got a couple of advanced placements because I went to college first. And then I was in my first English class and I asked the teacher lady, like, how do I write a paper for English as opposed to a science discipline? And then she just would refuse to help me. So that's a random side, but do that if you can. Now, back to Marissa. So clearly feedback is something built into the whole structure of like good argument, good writing, and good approach. And her entire TikTok is just rejecting all feedback. Like, I could do free scrolling, but I can't because of copyright issues. But like, you could free scroll and it's just like video after video after video of her just hating any comment that she gets and even some that are not really mean-spirited. I think something that a lot of people don't understand is and even when you go into like classical rhetoric and stuff, the amount of people who have access to your opinions is at a level that is unprecedented to any reality anyone could have foreseen ever. So if we look at, let's say, my channel, right? My most viewed video currently sits at 112,000 views, followed by 108,000 and 2 at 99,000. 112,000 people heard me talk about this specific subject and were able to contribute their opinions on this specific subject. That's nuts. I think a lot of people don't actually understand like how many people that is. Like stadiums and things like that fit from 10 to 30,000 at absolute like or the surrounding area rather at most. My university town, less than the population, like 112,000 is more than the whole population of like the university town I lived in. It's like such a vast set of people. The town I came from had 500. Okay? So it's like, and the thing is that when your opinion is exposed so vastly, people's knowledge gaps and different sets of context or further knowledge than yours and can expose your knowledge gaps is something that you actually need to accept about the platform. And assuming that any pushback is always hate is something that is going to only sink you. And you can see by Marissa's recent views, I'll put a screenshot, her cracking 1,000 views on a TikTok is difficult. And you cannot make money in Canada on the TikTok Creator Fund in the first place. But views like this nullify any chances for sponsorships, brand deals, anything in that capacity. So clearly she's having to make money elsewhere. Marissa makes points on some of her responses. She, however, does so in a way that presents things that dilutes any reasonable understanding of the initial message. Like, I completely understand and agree that no one should be harassed online, no one should be given hate comments or unalive threats or anything along that in that capacity. But when you begin to draw the issue to consent, similarly to how you would not consent to sexual actions or things along that line, you again have just blurred the line of reasonable action out of focus.
I have asked you to leave me alone, to go away, to stop giving me unwanted health advice. I have told you to leave my page, that you're not welcome here. And I have said each of those things at least 10 separate times in 10 separate comments. And you have ignored every single thing that I have said. So yes, you are harassing me. So you need to leave me the alone, because I shouldn't have to block you for you to respect me saying no. I do not want your health advice. You are actively harming me by continuing to give me unwanted health advice that I did not ask for. You can think that you're right and you can think that you're not harassing me, but the matter of the fact is that you are wrong and you are harassing me. I have said no, and everything after that is harassment. Now go away.
You do so in a way that is so emotionally unstable half the time on the toilet, girl, that like it just becomes comical. And that's where you can have these videos. Because the thing is all of the videos I watched on Marissa had more views than her biggest follower count and her essentially most viewed videos. So the conversations around her are more popular than she is, which is kind of similar, again, if we're talking about that sort of girl world, Amberlynn Reid, foodie beauty type deal. So Amberlynn Reid's third most popular video is the same amount of views as Zachary Michael's most popular video. But if you do like current views, Zachary Michael's pulling better views than her on average. Consider that on an average Amberlynn Reid reaction, he can even double the views of hers sometimes. So when the conversations around you are more popular than you are, that's because there is a fundamental issue with the way that you are doing things. And if it's everybody except you that's the problem, it's because you're the problem. I want to make this abundantly clear. The core messaging is not the issue for me. And it's not the issue for most people. Well, of course, the fitness influencer, bread tube types are going to have an issue with someone who's overweight being like, I'm really tired of you pointing out that I'm overweight. I am aware of the biases in the healthcare system, the presence of food deserts, lack of certain accessible healthy foods, differences in biology and health conditions, as well as what can happen due to medications. I was on Lexapro for a few months, and then I gained weight really, really quickly. And then it actually messed up a lot of other stuff, and I had to actually get take it off of it very quickly. And it's like, I know the reality of that sort of weight fluctuation due to medications and the stresses that it can bring and the other issues that come with it. But you can also attempt to correct that, me being taken off of it and then seeing what I can manage without it. And my weight has started to go back down. There's different ways of doing that. I'm not recommending, if Marissa watches this, God forbid, I'm not telling you what to do in that regard. I'm just saying that, like, I understand those different experiences and the ways that those things can go. And no, I did not pick being thin over my health. It was causing genuinely concerning issues because of the rapid weight gain and the way that it was going. I just wanted to add that because I feel like there's always going to be a pushback to something like that. This video serves, and I'm putting the thesis very, very clearly here, this video serves as a purpose of indicating what the result is when you put forward messaging in a way that that is so poorly done that the message itself seems hyperbolic and foolish. The Rhetoric of series, and you look at all the different types of people I've talked about, they vary really greatly in genre and in like the way that they do their videos. That's because I talk about different ways of approaching content. That's the purpose of what I do here. If you do my Rhetoric of series videos, you've got true crime. So that's about crime. You got Brittany Dawn, who's Christian. Shein, which is a corporation. Illuminati, who is manipulative. Jaclyn Hill, who kind of sold her soul to the beauty community, kind of. You have the allegation cycle on YouTube. You have Sneeko. You have the idea of having role models on YouTube. You've got Shoe on Head, who's a political commentator. Dissociate DID, or Dissociated, who is a mental health channel. Beauty influencers. We've got Keemstar. We've got who does drama videos. We've got YDHB, who did Amberlynn Reed commentary. You've got, I have a huge span. I have Trisha Paytas. I've got, you know what I mean? Politics, BreadTube, beauty YouTube, commentary, like derogatory family channels, 2016 as a whole year. So I cover these things not to target people, but to unpack the specific way that they're approaching things. And this sort of attitude problem is what Marissa's main issue is. Marissa, for example, does parallels between, as I mentioned prior, negative comments towards her and consent. And I'll put some examples in right now.
Everyone, just a reminder that just because I'm fat and I exist on the internet doesn't mean that you can give me unwanted health advice that I have for the last 4 years have said no to. Okay? Fat people's existence is not consent for unwanted health advice.
So here's something that Marissa takes for granted, and it constantly blows up in her face. Marissa, and I just read the feedback section from this book. Marissa assumes that in all circumstances, her commentary is abundantly clear, and using terms like obvious, go look it up yourself, I don't know why I have to teach you. And instead of understanding things like knowledge gaps, missing context cues, perhaps the point itself had gaps and people are not understanding, you just hate that people can't see things exactly in the way that you're seeing them. And this idea of being completely separate from being wrong in any context is just something that the internet deems as unacceptable. And I think it's unacceptable in any context. You're not going to go to your university class, your teacher gives you a 40 on your paper because it's gibberish, and then you scream in their face. I actually had a student do that. And yes, people who participated in movements such as the civil rights movement, the LGBTQIA2S+ movement, etc., made a point to be constructive. They weren't just screaming stuff all the time. And the sort of like concept of like disruptiveness had clarity in what the disruptiveness was for that wasn't appearing to be constantly self-serving, which is her biggest problem. Because this happens to me all the time when I make videos. I'll often talk about internet drama, I talk about serious events, allegations, complex topics, philosophy, sociology, all that kind of stuff. And sometimes the point I'm making doesn't come across in the way that I think it does. When I was talking about, for example, Jessie Smiles, I was trying to make it like abundantly clear that I like her and I like her content, but the structure of the beginning of her podcast episode versus the end half of the podcast, I just thought was weird. But then that point didn't come across, and it kind of just sounded like my issue was with her the whole time, which it really wasn't. So that's something to note. I'm not trying to address that here or anything like that, but that's an example that I have off the top of my head. It is incredibly unrealistic to assume hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands of people or whatever are going to interpret things exactly the same way as you do, because no message is neutral and no message is presented without context. And you will be inputting your context subconsciously, whether you like it or not. It is essentially impossible to be fully impartial in writing. And before anybody tries to say science, there is a paper on that. It is called, come on. I'll put the title of it on the screen. I've written about this paper in a different thing that I did. I just can't remember what it's called all of a sudden. What is happening here is a lack of logic in the sense of like logical cohesion between the link between the speaker and the audience. And this happens to all of us from time to time. As I mentioned, I've had issues on my videos. I've had issues in my academic time, my research, all that kind of stuff. Okay. It happens all the time. It happens in people's jobs. Even my boyfriend will do his job, like little writing thingy, and then he'll get comments of like, what did you mean by this? Stuff like that. It happens constantly. And speech is not static. There is a intrinsic like logic that will always come in, because if not, you're just going to be speaking gibberish sentences. If we go to the book Elements of Rhetoric, which is pretty far down in my little stack, the mind, like any other tool, can be used well or badly. Learn to use it well. Whether we like it or not, and whether we can name the rules or not, logic governs how the mind grasps truth. It is wired into us. Evidently, it is also programmed into the fabric of the universe. Suppose you meet a friend who doubts the laws of logic. Ask them, by what faculty? Better, invite them to consider the next time you go to redeem their super faithful flyer points for a free, far-off getaway. Why do I think it is acceptable to fling my body 40,000 feet in the sky? Well, that's easy. Each time they step into an airplane, they illustrate their faith in fairy dust. Well, that's all it is. We've built planes into float in the air because we've learned a little about the magic that binds physics to mathematics. No logic, no math, no physics, no flight. Here is a schematic form to see the basic building blocks of rational thinking. So it just talks about acts of the mind and types of objects and the outcomes, and then brings forth like things called syllogisms, which are just kind of like equations in philosophy. Before we turn into the mind's mistakes, let's fill in the sketch a bit, and we can move through each act in turn. By understanding, logicians refer to the mind's grasp of an essence or form. Form is an old word, but one worth remembering. Imagine two planks of oak cut from the same tree. A carpenter leaves behind one slab of wood and begins to work on another. An hour later, a second plank has become a table. What changed? In their chemistry, the two slabs remain identical. That is to say, in their matter, nothing's changed. From the point of view of chemistry, the two things remain one thing. Yet that is only one limited point of view. From every other point of view, what is altered is the wood's shape or form. The names we give to things identify the differences between things. Hence, the name and form is to take the essence or essential shape of that given thing. Table, triangle, man are each terms in the name of form. The mind either succeeds or fails at grasping the forms behind the names. So this is just your differences in the way that you define or put something forward, and there can be issues or disagreements between different faculties of thinking and different approaches of thinking. There is reasoning. What could be more natural? Indeed, nothing could be more natural, nothing. That is, until someone disagrees with you. The frequency, variety, and intensity of intellectual disagreements gives some indication of the importance of clear thinking and about the nature of arguing. From thinking about things to judging affirmations about things, the mind can turn next to infer the connections between things. In the act of reasoning, the mind posits casual links between terms and objects. In this third act of the mind, we move beyond mere observations and verbal clarifications into fields such as science. So this is what I'm saying in the sense of reasoning. The main crux, or the main center rather, in reasoning is your ability to view and reconstruct things when disagreements come forward. So it goes both ways, right? It's pretty ignorant to assume that the intention and meaning behind every comment that is said to you, you're going to understand, or that you say others will understand. And an example of this is we'll segue into what I'm going to refer to as the lettuce incident. So yes, I said the lettuce incident, but this reality just shows the attitude that Marissa has and a fixation on being a sort of victim into every interaction that she has, despite how silly it might seem.
No fucking sense. In one breath, you will tell fat people to only eat salads, to eat less food, and to eat more veggies. And then when said fat person does, y'all are like, oh my god, why are you grilling lettuce? Why are you eating the lettuce like that? Why are you sauteing the lettuce? Isn't it soggy? Is that still crunchy? Why are you eating it like that? So which one is it?
Why are you talking like that?
That's my I think you're stupid voice, Mom. You know that. So which one is it, folks? Tell me to eat more lettuce, you tell me to eat more vegetables, and then I do, and then you're fucking upset about it. So make up your mind, people. Make up your mind, or how about we just stop commenting on what people eat? I like that one the best.
Hopefully editing me was able to find the TikToks of the infamous lettuce incident. And I think I found them because I found them in my live stream yesterday. So hopefully they're still up. To sum up, for anyone who might be confused, Marissa was making like an egg avocado toasty type deal sandwich. And she decided to add grilled lettuce to it. By the way, by grilled lettuce, she means flaccid pan-fried lettuce. Okay? Despite it being something that essentially no one does, or no one does in the way that she's doing it when it comes to cooking. And before I get the comments of like, oh, well, this cuisine, blah, 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 or this chef does it, blah, blah, blah. She's not those things, and she's not doing any of those things, okay? And it doesn't matter, because it's not the point of the lettuce that's the issue, okay? Essentially, she said, oh, look at all of you who tell me to eat vegetables, and now that I'm eating them, you're asking me why I'm grilling lettuce. Like, I'll never be good enough. Marissa also responded to comments of the said lettuce and said that grilling it added flavor. The flavor that you get by putting a bit of oil or butter on lettuce and then letting it wilt in a pan is bitterness. And ew. I don't really know, because all I can think of when I think of like grilled lettuce personally, and this is something that said the reflection of my opinions if I were to comment on her video or other people, it's that sort of disconnect that's there, right? One, the only person in my real life that I've ever seen do it was my friend's divorced dad, who was very divorced dad core. And then I remember seeing him cook the lettuce and I wouldn't say anything. And then I was eating it with like a very straight face. And then my friend points at me and goes, see, Dad, she doesn't like the grilled lettuce either. The scene from Kitchen Nightmares, which the video has 28 million views, so it is a bit of a cultural phenomenon in and of itself, because people also saw it when it aired on TV, where Gordon Ramsay absolutely loses it on a guy because he made a grilled Caesar salad.
A misprint on there, was that me? Grilled Caesar salad?
No.
Really? The lettuce is grilled?
Huh? Chop it on the grill. You never heard of that?
No, it hasn't hit London yet. Okay, I'll start with that. No, but they actually grilled the lettuce. Can you just show a hand if anyone else has ever had a grilled Caesar salad before? Anybody here? Ladies? No?
Point is, cooked lettuce being gross isn't new. And it's not to point out that it's maybe a poor way to do it. Is it fat phobic? I think if I saw anybody cooking something really badly and then they say they don't like it, it would kind of be an issue of like, well, she didn't say she didn't like it, by the way, but in the sense of like, if someone's cooking something, to be like, well, maybe try it like this or don't do that thing. It's not because it's not fat phobic. They're just talking about the issue of the lettuce. Now, of course, there are going to be outlier comments that do have these issues, and I understand that, and it does happen. But to target everyone and assume everyone's thinking that way is just going to put a further target on your back for hate comments. In order to have any argument have solid ground, you need a solid premise. And Marissa's premises are almost exclusively based on rage and degrading the viewers that do interact with her videos, rather than putting foundational reasoning forward or ever citing sources for it. She speaks in absolutes, removes context, claiming to others that things are obvious, degrading those who are not aware of the exact knowledge set that she has, and then calls those who correct her on her approach and the gaps that are present as hateful, or those who, for example, even comment on her spelling as ableist. I actually did see that. Someone corrected her spelling and she said, look who's ableist, because that's the tone that she uses when she thinks. Anyway, you're calling people, I've been having to censor her swearing a ton, but you've been calling people bitches, assholes, pieces of shit, like assholes, things along that line. I've just censored myself a ton of times. And someone goes, grilled lettuce is bad, or you spelt this thing wrong, and you lose it on them. Can you get a grip, girl? Like, come on. So we're back to the rulebook of arguments. We're talking about premises and stuff. There's a section on chapter 4 or part 4. I don't know if they're chapters or parts because they're only like a page a piece. This reads, be concrete and concise. Avoid abstract, vague, or general terms. We hiked for hours in the sun. Is 100 times better than it was an extended period of laborious exertion. Be concise too. Area elaboration just loses everyone in a fog of words. And then they have 2 examples of writing where one of them is 9 lines and the other one is 2. The no version might overdo it a bit, but you see the point. Ben Franklin's rhyme and rhyming help him too, but the most important thing is that your words are sharp and simple and few. But also I want to add that you need to start with the reliable premises, which is the first part, that says, no matter how well you argue from premise to conclusion, your conclusion will be weak if your premises are weak. So this argument example is, nobody in the world today is really happy. Therefore, it seems the human beings are just not made for happiness. Why should I expect that what we can never find? The premise of this argument is a statement that nobody in the world is really happy. Sometimes on certain rainy afternoons or in certain moods that might almost seem true, but to ask yourself if this premise is plausible, if nobody in the world ever happy ever? What about that free ride around the sun every year? At the very least, this premise needs some serious defense, and very likely it's just not true. This argument cannot show then that humans are not made for happiness or that you or I should not expect to be happy. Sometimes it is easy to start from a reliable premise, and you may have a well-known example at hand or reliable sources that are clearly in agreement. Other times, it's harder. If you're not sure about the reliability of a premise, you may need to do some research or give an argument for the premise itself. If you find that you cannot argue adequately for the premise, then you might need to try another premise. That's the other thing. It's one of her biggest issues. Is she just tries to hammer in, there's like that quote that people say is Einstein, but that's been debunked and it's Einstein or whatever, where it's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. That's essentially, I'm not calling her insane, by the way, I'm not going to do any of that, but I'm saying in the sense of like the application of seeing that gap, I think is very true when it does come to Marissa, that it's just this idea of nonstop repetition of the same thing over and over and over again, and just thinking that you'll always fall short if you think you could just always repeat your previous actions. If we circle back to consent as well, Marissa does not respect the boundaries of others anyways. So now you've added hypocrisy to the sandwich. She does this in a place that really matters, which is dating, which is sensitive, right? And consent is something that is very heavily intertwined into, especially like relationships between consenting adults. For those of you who know about Marissa or have seen other Marissa Matthews videos, I think you know where I'm going with this. More so in the past, Marissa would share the chronicles of her dating life on Bumble. And the most infamous is how she actually harassed someone who blew off a date that they were going to have. What makes me take this more seriously as harassment is not only did they actually kind of know each other in like a more meaningful way, she messaged him on multiple platforms to ridicule him. Then not only that, she then aired her grievances on her public platform for thousands to see without his consent. And then on top of that, within those TikToks where she aired the grievances, she posted the DMs.
But here's a quick clip as a reminder.
This is the strong, independent woman that I am, who knows my worth, knows how I should and deserve to be treated, and how I don't take shit from anyone. He asked me to hang out. That means that he needs to initiate the day of type of thing, you know? And he didn't. It was like 2:30 and he still did not say anything about hanging out that evening. Now, with that said, that means that I'm not going to sit around. So when he asked me, what's up? I said, oh, I'm sanding some jewelry and watching TV. He's like, oh, cool. He's like, how about you? He's like, not much. I'm like, okay, cool. So then it's like 7, 8-ish. And I send him this lovely message of me setting my boundaries, not being rude at all, but letting him know that the way he was treating the whole situation I did not approve of. So I said, I thought we were hanging out today, LOL. So he didn't answer that, so I said this. I'm not one to wait around all day for a guy, so I'm no longer available to hang out tonight as you never clarified or confirmed anything yet. And now here's where I state my boundary. If there's a next time, I'm going to need things to be a little bit more concrete. Example, a guaranteed time, not just a general time frame because my time is valuable and I don't appreciate it being wasted. Because essentially you did waste my time. I'm not mad, just stating my boundaries, so if you can respect them, then cool, and if not, then oh well for you. So I sent that last night. I wake up, he read it, but didn't say anything. So I type, nothing? Not even 2 minutes later, he deletes me. Aww. Poor little boy child who doesn't know how to handle an independent woman who knows her worth. And because I'm a petty motherfucker, I messaged this on Bumble. I don't get it. You wanted to hang out with me. We chatted well and we had plans. We didn't end up hanging out because you didn't initiate the plans that we had had. So I set a boundary because I know my worth, and then you blocked me? Make it make sense. Make it make sense, buddy, but seriously, make it make sense. And he has since unmatched me. Ladies, know your worth. Stand up for yourself. It's okay.
At least when she's yelling and screaming about other people simply commenting on her videos, they do not have direct access to her. Like someone that you've connected to on a dating app that definitely has your personal Snapchat, but could also have things like a phone number and other such avenues. I want to connect things back as kind of a whole. Marissa says that people who suggest that her attitude is an issue when she's combating fat phobia is ableist to her mental health issues. It's also hateful, harassment, and abuse. These issues she has do not, however, these mental health issues, and block any ability for introspection or change in any capacity ever. However, she would make it seem that way by the constant figurative kicking and screaming, and that she does not ever change or adapt from her experiences in creating her content. And I say this because despite the fact that she's always saying that she's changed now and people are bringing up stuff and throwing it in her face, if you go onto her TikTok, she's constantly resharing videos from 2 years ago. This time that she supposedly changed from. So if you're co-signing yourself constantly, then what the couple of random slip-ups? But if your general nature is still the same, then there isn't a change there. You just want to hide things. And that's different. That's not taking accountability. That's a different avenue for this. Now, look me in the eyes. And I'm going to zoom in dramatically, slowly editing me. This part is going to need an impressive amount of nuance. And I'm going to try to make my points as clear as possible. Marissa is a white woman from Ottawa, Ontario, and appears to live with her mother in what seemed like a decently nice house. I grew up pretty close to the Ottawa-Gatineau region, and I also went to college in Hull, which is right across the river from Ontario. In general, I lived a 15-minute bus ride from Ottawa. This is just saying that I kind of know what the vibes are like, if that makes sense. And I've also seen posts from like Hamilton, so maybe she's out there. I live near there too. Waterloo's not that far from there. I make this point to say that because I know how much it costs to live in Ontario. Canada is incredibly expensive to live in. It is nuts and deplorable, but that's another conversation. So what I'm saying is that the life she lives is one that clearly has a decent set of privileges, let alone being white. Like I said, being, decently high class in the sense of not horribly impoverished, having a platform on social media, and having access to these devices and other such things. I am very privileged in the same regard, but again, don't necessarily have the same privileges as she does in certain contexts, especially when it comes to, for example, living conditions, at least in my youth. This is not a bad thing, by the way, having these, being afforded these privileges, and I think most people, no, not most, everybody should have the right to like a decent house in Ottawa and everything like that, despite how expensive it is. But then, Mika, why mention this? Well, lovely, curious viewer, it is because we need to put a bit of context into the part of Marissa's content that inspired this video in the first place. Marissa constantly refers to her videos as a space for marginalized bodies, which I agree with the concept to a certain degree. I 100% agree with the idea that fat people, especially fat women or essentially not cishet men, face abhorrent amounts of discrimination and derogatory treatment towards their size. Along with, if intersectionality is present, in which in the most cases it is, like I said, even if you're a white man, there's obviously could be other intersections there. There are going to be compounding issues that come into place. It's an issue of how she aligns the messaging for this. A focus and fixation on marginalization as the basis of her content. This combined with the issues of her attitude that have an inability for providing effective education seems to rather just fuel a victim complex that she has on the platform. And I would actually argue that Marissa weaponizes the privilege of having a decent sized platform, or at least especially before that TikTok account got deleted, to abuse people that she gets mad at. For example, the Bumble debacle. But she's also cheered herself on in the abuse of retail workers throughout the pandemic. And I'll put those clips in.
I'm not done ranting yet because people are dumb. So after biking all the way to Canadian Tire to get a new seat for my bike because it's broken, they won't allow me in the store because I have a backpack. And they want me to leave my backpack and my belongings at the front. How am I supposed to buy stuff if I don't have my purse on me? Like, what are these dumb rules? Do people not realize that a lot of women do not wear purses anymore? Especially when you're riding a bicycle? I can't wear a purse when I'm riding a bike. That's why I have a backpack, because it fits everything that I need. Like, am I supposed to go in the store and hold everything that's not in my backpack? I actually might do that. Just take everything out of my backpack and walk in with my backpack empty. They can have that, and I'll just hold all my items and be an asshole? Probably. Why do people have these dumb rules? What is so bad about having a backpack? What is so bad about a woman having a backpack as a purse? Jesus Christ almighty.
As a depressed person who doesn't want to fucking make food, I had more energy to get up, to go outside, to go for a fucking walk, to get food because I couldn't make any. And then the Tim Hortons that I go to literally is not selling food. You bet I said f you to the guy and left.
I fucking hate this pandemic and I fucking hate people. Holy shit! You Trudeau. Doug. Fuck everybody. Yeah, I guess I'm not eating today.
And despite these videos being older, the attitude itself is still very consistent in how she yells and screams at people in videos very recently. I'll put in, just for now, to defend myself a little bit more, a very recent example.
So this is just a friendly reminder to my fellow fatties that if you're on public transit, you are allowed to take up space. And if someone is so brazen to say to you, you can't go there, you're not going to fit, you're allowed to snap back at them and say, shut the f***. I know my own body a little. Which is what I just did to this fatphobic piece of shit on this bus. So just a reminder, you're allowed to take up space, you're allowed to be on public transit, regardless of what fatphobic people say to you. Nobody knows your body more than you do, so you can tell everyone else to shut the fuck up. Have a nice day, everyone.
And again, as mentioned, she frequently reposts videos from that time. So there's still a pretty consistent set of beliefs that transcend through that point. I feel that if you're so proud of what you were making then, did you really grow from it? Marissa, essentially on a daily basis, utilizes her own trauma to legitimize the way that she abhorrently treats other people. Clearly, this is not effective, and instead solidifies and potentially puts others in the same trauma cycle. And to substantiate my opinion on this, we have my little book on conflict transformation and restorative justice. So first, if we define conflict transformation, it says, conflict transformation is to envision and respond to the ebb and flow of social conflict as life-giving opportunities for creating constructive change process that reduces violence, increases justice, and indirect interaction and social structures, and responds to real-life problems in human relationships. A transformational approach recognizes that conflict is a normal and continuous dynamic within human relationships. Moreover, conflict brings with it the potential for constructive change. Positive changes do not always happen, of course. As we all know too well, many times conflict results in long-standing cycles of hurt and destruction. But the key to transformation is a proactive bias towards seeing conflict as a potential catalyst for growth. And responding suggests that division must result in action, engaging in the opportunity. The tilt towards involvement. Respond recognizes that the deepest understanding comes from the learning process in those life experiences, as opposed to berating and dogging on the people that you're in conflict with. And if we go to the sort of conflict cycle, which is here, inquiry 1 is which is the first part, and I'll show you the picture of it in a second, is the presenting situation. Inquiry 2 is the horizon of the future, and inquiry 3 is development of change and process. So inquiry 1 is the issue, the patterns, and the history. Inquiry 2 is solutions, relationships, and systems. And inquiry 3 is the development and change of process. And this is sort of what it looks like I'll take a picture of this on my phone and I'll put it on the screen right now, and you can pause to take a better look at it. Because as you can see by that cycle, right, it's pretty complex and layered, despite the fact that Marissa never wants to incorporate any complex layers or nuance into a single thing that she says. So now we're going to move on to the most serious part of the video, and I would like to put a trigger warning for racism into this section here. This is where I'm most worried about my message being lost. And I found myself, and this is why I made this video in the first place, growing increasingly frustrated with Marissa's links to fatphobia and racism. And I want to preface that before I solidified this into the script, I did look around for opinions of those affected, specifically fat black women. And I came across a video by a lot of Melissa called "I'm Calling It Now, Hey/Fat Acceptance is Racist," and I'll put in the main clip from her video that I found most solidified what I was thinking initially.
I don't know. Moving on.
Down, everyone's a feminist until there is a spider around.
What do you want from body positivity? Because I have been struggling now for 2 years on this app to figure out why skinny people keep making videos like this, and then they have never made a video saying what A, they would like to contribute to a body positive movement, and B, what it is they would like from the fat people, particularly the fat black women who...
Stop. This is... Whoo! This is what the fuck I'm talking about. This is what the fuck I be talking about in my motherfucking video. This is it. Notice how the original poster and the lady who stitched are both white women. Ain't got nothing to do with a person who looks like me. This is what the fuck I'm talking about. And all of a sudden, black women are thrown into this. All of a sudden, what do you want to do with a fat black woman? Yo, stop. This ain't got nothing to do with us. Stop. You are literally using black women as the plight for your activism. Let me relax. Because what the fuck is this? It's almost like I want to cry, but I really, really like my makeup and I don't want to fuck it up. I'm wearing Tante Doll from Lancome and my setting powder is from Beauty Bakery, and I just really don't want to cry right now. And my blush is from NARS, and that's too much money. That's too much money collectively spent on my face to cry over this shit, but this shit will bring me to tears. Because what the fuck is this? I promise you, the majority of black women spend their days minding their business and not dealing with these type of movements. We don't have nothing to do with this. But for the sake of continuity, let's continue.
Birthed body positivity into existence. What structural discrimination, what marginalization are you experiencing that you need our support for? And are you willing to do the work to unlearn your fat phobia in the process? Or do you want us to just be okay with the fact that you have insecurities about gaining weight and being fat or looking fat?
I hate it here. So you're sitting here trying to defend your right to eat whatever the fuck you want. That's cool. Do that on your own time, okay? Be immobile and die on your own time. Leave black people out of this. To say that it's made for fat women of color, like body positivity, makes no fucking sense to me. And this movement has gone way far left. This is giving me very much third wave feminism, and I want off this ride. I hate it. Like, I hate to see it. I really hate to see it. The fact that people like Tess Holliday and Virgie Tavlo and Reagan Chastain, they sit online and they spew all of this false rhetoric, and motherfucking Lindo Bacon, like the goddamn leader of their movement, spew all of these half-truths, and they give false equivalencies. It irks me. Another big false equivalency is smoking, right? They'll say, oh, well, nobody has a problem with smoking, but we have a problem with that. I have a big problem with smoking. Okay, I don't want your smelly ass cigarette smoke in my face. I don't want it in my air. I actually don't allow smoking in my yard, and I have told people that they need to leave my yard if they smoke. I refuse to drop off coworkers that smoke because I don't want my car smelling like smoke. And that is my personal life choice, just like it's your personal life choice to sit down and smoke cigarettes. And therefore, I don't have to be around that. So if someone is telling you that you don't have to actually be fat, like you don't have to put up with this stuff, and we're not saying that you owe us skinniness, right? Like, I don't believe I owe the world skinniness. I don't even believe I owe myself skinniness. I owe myself health. I owe myself a high quality of life. If being thin comes with that, then that's fine, you know, but I owe myself the best chance that I have. to go and live a quality life, and to tell people to give up, to tell people that diets don't work, to tell people that, you know, these half-truths and these false equivalencies, to tell people, oh, well, you can't change your shoe size, so you can't change your body weight, and to make up words like set points. You must be out of your mind. You must be. And then to put black women at the forefront of all of this, you're racist. You're complicit in our destruction. It is racist. Like I said before, to put a group of people that are the most impacted by something negatively and to front as if the movement was made for them, to say, this is for you.
I also could not find specific examples of what I'm thinking in my silly little books, but I know it's a concept about alignments in the argument, and it is something that you do learn about in rhetoric, philosophy, and other such things. And the tactic that I'm going to refer to has been used in dog whistling a lot, especially in right-wing kind of political circles. Now, clearly, I am not a fat black woman or black woman in any capacity. That's also something. I am straight-sized, so this is something to note as well. Because I'm not any of these things, this is why the words of Alana and Melissa have been put in, because I'm not trying to make a point of speaking over these voices. When I brought this forward on my live stream yesterday as well, there are comments from fat black women that air the same sentiments, and I'll put those on screen with their names censored for the sake of hate, but this is essentially the sentiment that I'm going for. I remember this concept from reading bell hooks, where I learned about in both my contemporary rhetoric course and in my critical perspectives of education course at my master's degree, that was talking about white liberalism, white liberal feminism specifically, and how it functions in silencing black voices. I will play the video from Marissa and this other creator, who I don't know who that is, that outlines like where my thought process on this originally came from.
Hello there, kind sir. I am going to point you in the direction of this book since you clearly have not read it. It is called Fearing the Black Body, The Racial Origins of Fatphobia. And instead of, Googling this yourself, you want to tell me I'm a bad person for bringing up something that's factually accurate? Okay. I'm not a person of color, I've never claimed to be, but I do know about this and how they are correlated because as a white ally, I am trying to do my work. And this book helps me with that work. So I'm going to invite you to read this book instead of, inserting yourself into our little conversation that, again, was accurate. So yeah, racism and fatphobia are completely linked. Take a look. When you're done reading, then we can talk. Otherwise, have a great day.
Here's your reminder that fatphobia is rooted in racism. As always, if you haven't read this book, go do that. The main thing to understand is that for the last 300-ish years, white folks have been marketing fatness as a black trait. And this is regardless of whether or not black people individually were actually fat. That was irrelevant. The message they spread was that black women specifically were ravenous and uncontrollable, and these barbaric traits made them fat. On the flip side, thinness was marketed as a white trait. Again, regardless of whether or not individual white people were actually thin, that was irrelevant. The idea was that white women specifically were refined and restrained, and this led them to having delicate, thin bodies. Over the years, these messages have become more subtle, but even today, they're still very prevalent in conversations around race, health, capitalism, and poverty.
As you just witnessed, right, this was a video of two white women linking fatphobia to racism. Now, you could also say that more people listen to white women than black women, and the need to uplift the voices. Yes, but also she stitched a video from another white woman, and it's referencing a book that I would not necessarily choose if I was trying to put forward the messaging. I'm fully aware of intersectionality. I've taught intersectionality in schools. I've done research. I've done big projects. I've actually done the work in real life, and you just don't see that from these videos. I went on a huge rant about it in my live stream yesterday, so before I get this sort of like, you're doing the exact same thing, it's definitely a bit more complex than people make it out to be. I'm fully aware of intersectionality. As I mentioned, the link is there. But two white women who notably don't even reference the book directly that they're talking about appear to be using this, I feel, to forward their own selfish agenda of disliking criticism towards their bodies. Or just criticism towards them in general. Because sometimes it's not even, it could be the lettuce thing, and then it will be linked to fatphobia and then linked to racism again. And from what I've seen from Marissa, I would believe that that's the approach that's being taken. Now, I read Fearing the Black Body. I found out it was actually available full text available on my university library proxy, like the little website thingy. So I got it fair and square, also legally. I don't think this book gives them what they want it to give. And there are actually, I remember I was talking about this in the live stream again, it was much better. There are much better books that exist. Sam in Every Size, who has a degree in history, goes through this book, and I don't have a degree in history. I have a degree in like reading almost kind of, which is a bit more complicated to address. And I think my critiques on it are a bit different, but I also want to make a point that I did not watch Sam's videos before reading the book. I went into that book straight blind and actually thought it was going to be something that did adequately support their opinions rather than just being a silly set of hogwash that isn't particularly useful. And I think if they actually read it, some of the tune would change. Basically, the book outlines sort of history of the slave trade and then the context of fatphobia around it. But then a ton of what built up fatphobia in the first place was white people against other white people, particularly educated people from England who were always talking to each other in bars, philosophers, writers, stuff like that, who would like chat in bars all day and drink booze and eat bread and butter and meat and then gain a ton of weight. And they would get gout all the time. Now, this happening was due to the access of goods they did get via the slave trade. So there are connections, but the book is written in a way that is so convoluted and the timelines jump way too much. The citation is very weak. The sourcing is very confusing. And it's just not good because every time I'm trying to get her point, she's like, the author rather will double back on herself where she'll be like, oh yeah, so like they hated Black women's form, except this really famous thing where they actually love the Black woman's form. And I'm not saying that I don't think racism and fatphobia are linked, as I mentioned. I'm saying the book's not that good. That particular book isn't good. I've read way better short form texts in relation to these topics. I just don't. I read such a volume of stuff when I'm doing my university degree because everything's very quick and my classes were always like kind of condensed that like I can't remember like the specific text at hand, but the point that I'm trying to make is it is the white liberal feminism of silencing Black voices when two people where one I don't think has read the book sits here and is like, this is the thing. This proves all of my points, actually. Could you please read it? And don't try to say it's ableist that I'm asking you to read a book, because then don't reference the book. Okay? Because, like, that's another thing that I see a lot in this regard. And again, when you're throwing things around so haphazardly just to support your own selfish agenda of not wanting to be criticized, I'm not calling the combating fatphobia the selfish agenda. That's not what it is. The agenda that's selfish is I don't want anyone to criticize me ever, which she makes very clear in her videos. I'll put another one as an example.
Oh my god, thank you so much for realizing that I, in fact, do live in my own world, and that means that you can leave and get the fuck out and never come back again. Goodbye. You're so smart.
So I want to read my point from Bell Hooks here in regard to that sort of white liberal feminism. So here she talks about Bell Hooks in this context that they often take the differences or the differentness, for lack of better, like the difference between the Black woman and the other being like the oppressor, the white people in this case, and how they always boil down their difference, i.e. their race, as a point of struggle or issue. There's never like a good thing that's coming with that, right? Which when you're co-opting a intersectional movement and essentially like the alignment of the argument is if every time she's called fat that you're also being racist, you're not being racist to a white person. That's not happening. And the light, minute undertone of the historical context has not affected you nearly as much as actual Black women, and you're not uplifting them through your screaming videos that relate to it. So this is a quote so it begins with a quote from Feminist Theory from Margin to Center. And there's a part that says, this sense of wholeness impressed upon our conscience by the structure of our daily lives provided us with an oppositional worldview, a mode of seeing unknown to most of our oppressors that sustain us, and aid us in our struggle to transcend poverty and despair, strengthen ourselves, our sense of self and solidarity. Though incomplete, these statements, and then Bell Hooks writes, though incomplete, these statements identify marginality as much more than a site of deprivation. In fact, I say it's just the opposite, that it is also the site of radical possibility, a space of resistance. It was this marginality that I was naming as a central location for the production of the counter-hegemonic discourse that is not just found in our words, but in habits of being and the way one lives. As such, I was not speaking of a marginality one wishes to lose, to give up or to surrender as part of moving to the center, but rather of a site that one stays in, clings to even, because it nourishes one's capacity to resist. It offers one the possibility of a radical perspective from which to see and create, to imagine alternatives, new worlds. This is not a mythic notion of marginality. It comes from a lived experience. Yet I want to talk about what it means to struggle to maintain the marginality even as one works, produces, lives, if you will, at the center. I no longer live in that segregated world across the tracks, central to life in that world that was the ongoing awareness of the necessity of opposition. When Bob Marley sings, "We refuse to be what you want us to be. We are what we are, and that's the way it's going to be," that space of refusal, that one can say no to the colonizer, no to the downpresser, is located at the margins, and one can only say no. Speak the voices of resistance, because there exists a counter language. While it may resemble the colonizer's tongue, it has undergone a transformation, and it has been irrevocably changed. When I left that concrete space in the margins, I kept alive in the heart's ways of knowing reality, which affirm continually not only the primary resistance, but the necessity of a resistance that is sustained by the remembrance of the past, which includes recollections of broken tongues, giving us way to speak to the decolonizer in our minds, our very beings. Once Mama said to me that I was about to go again to the predominantly white university. You can take what the white people have to offer, but you don't have to love them. Now understanding her cultural codes, I know that she was not saying to me not to love the people of other races. She was speaking about colonization and the reality of what it means to be taught in a culture of domination by those who dominate. She was insisting on my power to be able to separate useful knowledge that I might get from the dominating group from participating in ways of knowing that would lead to estrangement, alienation, and worse, assimilation and co-optation. This is the issue that I'm talking about, is that co-opting. She was saying that it's not necessary to give yourself over to them to learn. Not having been in those institutions, she knew that I might be faced again and again with situations where I would be tried, made to feel as though the central requirement of my being accepted would mean participating in systems of exchange that ensure my success, my making it. She was reminding me of the necessity of opposition and simultaneously encouraging me to not lose the radical perspective shaped and formed by marginality. That's that sort of nature where I find there's that co-opting that's forcing Black women into a sort of silence because of the whole movement being overthrown by these hyperbolic figures that are just white women, 99% of the time, just screaming racism. Now, when it's coming from fat Black women, obviously there's going to be a difference. There's going to be a different set of perspectives, and I don't wish to speak over that. But this is a sentiment that I've seen frustration in. I do want to use my privilege as a white woman while not talking over them and using the words from these communities directly, not just stitching a book while cutting up a zucchini or cucumber or whatever that was. That frustration lies in me from my experiences in the education sector and research and stuff that I just wanted to outline as another major issue that a lot of people are not necessarily willing to point out. My issue is not linking fatphobia to racism. It's the use of the privileged white woman co-opting it to deflect criticism. And I'm going to end on that note. So to conclude, I hope the, reading to filth was effective in what I was meaning in this circumstance. Links, sources, ways to support the channel, including memberships and all that stuff, all down below. Email as well if you want to contact me. And thank you to Pia for sponsoring the video. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye!
Doing a blind reaction. Gonna do a blind reaction to who this motherfucker is, because I don't know. About to look him up. Also, just thought of blind reaction being someone reacting to blind people.
So you're saying you can't see shit?
Looking him up. Finn from Glee. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And this what's this motherfucker up to these days? What is he? Oh, fuck.